Hey everyone, it's Amy Fox with Work in Progress Texas, and I'm live in our free Facebook community to talk about a subject of creating your own nutrition plan and the benefit of it and advantages of it. And I think what's kind of leading me to this conversation is that so many times, especially in the beginning of the year, I know we're kind of approaching March here, but when you are starting to create a nutrition plan or you're starting to acknowledge that you want to make changes in your life, your health, you want to lose weight, you want to feel better, you want more energy, there's so many different things that people are usually trying to accomplish. You have to stop and evaluate your current situation, your current habits, what you're doing, and make some changes. And sometimes the changes aren't super comfortable. And so, one reason why we kind of take a stand against certain nutrition plans, diets, protocols, or whatever out there, you can group any diet plan that you've heard of or eating style or whatever. There's always, some kind of system to follow. And a lot of the times when you're entering into a quick fix or a system of some kind, there is a process you follow, but there's really no like, how do I get out of it? How do I maintain it? How do I make it, work for my everyday life? And so we come from the perspective of, yes, you need to be in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. And a lot of those nutrition and diet plans accomplish that. They find a way to get you into a calorie deficit. Keto is going to be a higher fat, medium protein, lower carb diet. And because of how it works, it's going to help you be more satiated with that higher fat. You're going to naturally eat less, etc. And that would be a style. Then you also have like Weight Watchers, Optavia, you've got the Zone diet, you've got Nutrisystem, you've got Jenny Craig, like whatever else is out there. And all of them are putting you in a calorie deficit. So many times people are jumping into these programs because they're promising these rapid results. They're trendy, other people are doing them. And then you get into them and you realize, wow, they're pretty restrictive, or wow, this is a system that I'm following, but it's not necessarily teaching me how to change my behaviors or habits with my current situation. So when you get to that point of fat loss, which many people do, millions of people do, all of a sudden you stop doing it, then you're reintroducing things that you love or you missed out on because you have that end goal in sight. And then we unfortunately have that rebound weight gain. You might even suffer from nutrient deficiencies. And then you created these habits that are really not sustainable long term. So our result, our preference or suggestion instead of doing that is to customize a nutrition plan for you specifically. Because here's the thing, like food is enjoyable. There is satisfaction that comes with food. There's a psychological aspect of eating. It's culture, it's family, it's community. There are so many events that we, include food, and that shouldn't be a bad thing. Food creates community. It's something where you get around the dinner table with friends and family and you make memories and have a good time. So we like to have people like have fun in their like diet phases, nutrition phases, maintenance phases, whatever. And even though fat loss phases stink because you still have to limit how much you have, and you're having your energy is kind of dropping a little bit, to your metabolism's kind of adjusting, your things are kind of slowing down just a scotch because you got less energy coming in, and the result is that you're losing fat at that process. There is some limitation, but the beautiful thing about customizing a nutrition plan to you specifically is that you don't have to take away everything you love in order to accomplish your fat loss goals. So you can still have alcohol here and there, although not suggested for fat loss phases. You can still have your sweets and treats and things that you prefer, but you're usually just kind of creating and setting some boundaries around them. So when we look to be having a flexible dieting approach, we don't believe in necessarily removing things right away unless you have a food sensitivity, an autoimmune issue, or you actually have an allergy to it. And a lot of the times when you're trying to figure out, like, do I have a food sensitivity? There is an elimination diet that's necessary in order to do that, because you don't know until you remove it from your life if it's impacting you negatively. So what we like to do is create a list of foods that you absolutely love, like things that you eat on a regular basis, things that maybe you want to try, things you would be open to trying, like maybe you haven't tried something or you tried it cooked one way, so you'd be willing to try it be cooked another way. A great example for us is that David hated salmon for a long time. You know, he grew up on the East Coast. That's a whitefish world. And gradually with age, he's been able to experiment and try different recipes. And even just tonight, we had a salmon recipe with an orange marmalade and some jalapenos, and it was really delicious. And so he found other ways to cook salmon and has enjoyed salmon now. So you could do that with broccoli, for example. Maybe you don't like it steamed, but you like it roasted. You know, sometimes you have to just create a list of like, I don't know if I like this, or when I was younger, I tried it and I didn't really like it. Maybe I can try it a different way. However, I will never try meatloaf ever, and I'll never eat it. And that's okay. You can have foods on your list that you absolutely despise. There is no reason to include foods that you truly, truly hate in your plan within reason. Of course, there's within reason. So we like to customize a plan based off of that food list. Like we can give people food lists to eat off of if you're trying to aim like for paleo or something specific, or you want meal plan examples or recipes. We have that. But ultimately, you still have to create your own customized list of what does that look like? What animal proteins do I like? Which ones I'm willing to try? What vegetables, what fruits, you know, what healthy fats do I want to incorporate into my plan that I might not be incorporating now? And also, looking for a little diversity in your food is actually good for your gut health and your body too. So having, you know, not always eating the same thing, there's benefits to that, but finding some creativity too is a great way. But when you make your own food list and you know that like, hey, psychologically, there's no, like nothing's off the table. Rather, it's more so how we build our plate and structure and balance out our macronutrients. Then that takes a little bit of stress off. So we usually like people to not jump into any kind of calorie deficit right away while they're figuring out this nutrition list for themselves, so that we can start getting used to eating off of that nutrition list, especially when we prioritize protein. And then when you get ready for a fat loss phase, all we're really doing is reducing some fats and carbs, keeping our protein where it's at, and really just tracking calories and protein, which is keeping it super, super simple. This long term is going to help you adhere to your said nutrition plan, because more than likely what you're going to do is you're going to go into a maintenance phase, perfect the maintenance phase, get used to eating enough protein, which we recommend 1 gram of protein per ideal body weight. So if you are like 180 pounds and you're trying to lose 30 pounds, you'd be trying to aim for 150 pounds. So that's how many grams of protein you would be working to consume. You could go on the 0.7 to 1 gram, if, you know, to minimums. So a lot of the times what we'll do in the beginning is start with some ranges, or we'll say like, hey, let's just aim to get 100 grams of protein within the day, and then we'll build from there. And once you kind of perfect that protein amount and let the carbs and fats fall wherever based on your likes and taste, then you get ready for that fat loss phase where you're just removing some carbohydrates and fats from your diet, creating that deficit, probably around, we like to do the 300 to 500 calorie deficit and then add some additional movement on top of it. And that's really a good balance that's sustainable. Because that's the other thing too, when you're customizing your nutrition plan, especially for fat loss, we're not trying to create crazy calorie deficits right off the bat. We can definitely go that route at some point, be a little bit more extreme, but we still have to first find like what's that person's real maintenance calories, where is that at, where they're not gaining, where they're not losing, where's that sweet spot, and build from there. And sometimes a reverse diet is needed, sometimes a little bit more nourishment and kind of stress management stuff is needed before we even kind of do it, all of those things. But for the sake of this conversation, it's really creating that list of foods you love, creating the foods that you hate, creating the foods that you're willing to try and cook a different way, and then build your plan around that. So the reason that the boundaries that we normally hit is, hey, we want to kind of be conscious of how much sugar we're consuming. We want to be conscious of how much alcohol we're consuming. We want to prioritize protein because it's going to help with lean body mass. It's going to be the most satiating macronutrient. I always say it's the natural semaglutide. It's the natural Ozempic. And then, of course, we're trying to incorporate some fibrous options, get your hydration up, and that kind of sets you up for success. But protein is going to be important to because it supports the metabolism, all of the cells of your body. And that's one thing that people are usually having to adjust because really, as a whole in a country, we are severely under eating protein for our overall health. And when people do that, that's when your body composition goals become better. Like you're not just becoming a smaller version of yourself, you're actually sustaining your skeletal muscle and helping with your shape and body composition. So, really the last part to speak to this is, once you've kind of figured out those foods that you like and you start to stock your fridge and your pantry, half the battle is just getting to the grocery store and getting your week stocked up so you've got things to grab. Certainly you could do meal plan services that deliver food to you. You can also, most grocery stores have the ability to online order and then you can just pick it up. Like we're trying to think of time-saving things. But same thing with like meal planning and preparing for the week. There's a benefit to batch cooking, usually batch cooking your proteins or your starches, like your potatoes and rice. And what's cool too about when you batch cook potatoes and rice, it becomes a resistant starch when it goes into the refrigerator and cools down. And that just means you don't have the same insulin spike that goes up. And it turns into a probiotic, which is really good for was it prebiotic or probiotic? Ooh, I'm having a blank right now, a blank moment. But it's good for your gut. So I'm pretty sure it's a prebiotic when it turns into a resistant starch, which is pretty cool. And then as you're starting to create your meals and try recipes, and maybe you cook a couple proteins, so you've got a couple of lunches out of the way, I always feel like meal planning usually is like you trying to pack your lunch for work. That's the easiest thing. Most of the time we're eating breakfast and dinner at home, so you've got a little bit more flexibility there. But ideally, if you're meal prepping, you'd reheat in the oven or stovetop. But of course, last resort in the microwave. And then another aspect of when people are creating their own nutrition plan is starting to create some awareness around how you eat. And what I mean by that is slowing down, being mindful, chewing your food, not sitting with a bunch of distractions so that you can be in tune with your hunger cues. And even if you portion out your meal or you're weighing your stuff for a fat loss phase or something like that, still being aware of if you're feeling full and satiated so that you can pump the brakes and sit back and say, can I stop right now? Do I feel pretty satisfied? Do I feel good? Can I have this for later? Do I want to keep going? Like be kind of more in tune with your body. Because as you phase out of tracking everything you do or tracking your food, especially during fat loss phases, it's nice to still have that mindful eating approach where you're in tune with your body and aware of your hunger cues, you're eating to being satisfied and stopping. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're satisfied is kind of a method I always grew up with. But when you start to create some of those mindful eating habits and you know how much protein you need to hit your protein goals, you really can regulate your hunger and your food throughout the day without having to do a lot of tracking at some point. So obviously in the beginning, that's going to be important. So you have knowledge to know like how much is 5 ounces of protein, if I'm going to do 30 grams of protein, how many ounces do I need, for example? And just kind of start to learn and teach what do those amounts look like. That's why we have people track and measure things dominantly in the fat loss phase to control so we don't overeat, because it can be really easy to overeat, especially when your caloric deficit is only like 500 calories. It's very simple to drink the 500 calories or to eat the 500 calories in a dessert of some kind, So those are the times when you need to be a little bit more aware, but it helps give you an idea of how much, and we also use why can I not talk today? Hand portion control thing. So like the palm is your protein source. Your cupped hand here is your carbohydrate sources, your vegetable sources. The fist is like your starches and potato, and the thumb is your healthy fats. So you could probably think like right here. And actually that visually doing it that way, kind of like estimating your size and everything like that for those protein sources and starches and carbs is pretty dang accurate. So one of the things we provide with our macronutrient split is the hand portion, sheet based on how much somebody needs to eat, which is really nice. It's just another way to be on the go and have some, like, literally use your hand to portion out things that you would need. So, you know, and then I think the last thing to kind of talk about this, we did mindful eating there too, is when you're needing some support and guidance. Of course, we're always going to say, hey, we're here to help. If you guys want a free consultation for us to evaluate your current situation, give you some tips and tricks, kind of customize a nutrition plan for you, and then you can decide if you want to work with us after that, let me know, knock on my door, send me a DM, whatever. I'd be happy to help you with that. But I think what this is meant to accomplish, and I hope that it has, is that you don't have to jump into some crazy nutrition plan or system. I mean, and when you do, it's hard when you finish it to know what to do afterwards, because I have not yet to see a nutrition plan that like phases you out. And maybe there are some out there. I'm not going to just discredit everybody, but to me, it's kind of like I'd rather you customize your own nutrition plan based on your likes and tastes, and then know how to optimize protein, get yourself to a point where you're eating consistently, and then get your body ready for a fat loss phase and just kind of reduce the calories by about 500 from what your maintenance is. And that's where your starting point is. Usually what we do is we do 12-week increments of fat loss phases. We like to go for 12 to 16 weeks at a time, because fat loss, when you're eating adequate amounts of protein and you're not putting yourself in this massive calorie deficit where you will also lose muscle mass, because we don't want to lose muscle mass, it's going to be a tad slower. So we do like 12 to 16 week chunks at a time, get as consistent as we can, take a couple weeks off, and then depending on where they're at that point, continue on with another fat loss phase. And usually, for the most part, people in a year can lose that 30 to 50 pounds, maybe even more, depending on how much you have to lose when you're just consistent with this. And it's just treating your body with a lot of love, feeding yourself what you like and enjoy. And of course, quality of food is going to matter, but ultimately for fat loss, it doesn't matter for the science behind fat loss. Now, the science behind gut health and, fighting off heart disease and cancer and all of that kind of stuff is going to be nutrition quality. And then sometimes elimination diets are needed to specify based on someone's physical needs, allergies, problems like that. So I hope today was helpful. If this gave you some ideas on how to create your nutrition plan, comment below. We would love to hear like what you come up with, maybe foods that you hate, or foods that you love, or foods that you're willing to try. That'd be kind of a fun list to see. But I really appreciate you joining me tonight and going through this. And I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your evening, day, or whenever you're watching this.